Hi, it's Courtney Kirschbaum here. We're going to be starting in a few minutes. If you're dropping in, please type who you are and where you are joining us from today. And thank you, Hans from the UK. You've started us off. I appreciate that. All right, for those of you who are regulars, you know I do a short kickoff video. So we're going to kick that off. And then we are going to get started on this week's Free on Friday webinar. So welcome, everyone. All right, welcome everyone to this week's Free on Friday webinar sponsored by Job Hunt School. I am Courtney Kirschbaum, and I really appreciate you joining today and for chiming in on the chat window. I will engage with you as much as I can during and after today's webinar. Hey, Harnish, I'm great. Welcome. Hello, Dean and Mai and Basker and everyone who's said hello in the chat window. We're going to dive right in. I try to stay on schedule, so we're going to start right here at high noon. And today's topic is learn the secrets to getting a job that you want, even if you don't have experience. And I know this is a real challenge for people. You feel like you see a job that you want and you're like, I could do that job. And you look at the requirements, the job description, and you're like, oh, I'm not even going to bother to apply. And that's it's a big barrier. And I think it's often a false barrier. So that's what we're going to jump into today. This is part of a Free on Friday webinar that I host live every Friday. So these run every Friday. If you follow me on LinkedIn, you'll see my posts. You can also register to get notices of these webinars every week at courtneyworkshop.com. You just go to, if you haven't already, if you go to courtneyworkshop.com, then I will make sure that you're on the reminder list. If you register for this webinar, or if you have already registered at courtneyworkshop.com, you will get a weekly notice of these webinars until you unsubscribe, which you are free to do at any time. No harm, no foul. You will not hurt my feelings. So I'm all about focus. This is an hour of your time, and that's the most valuable thing you have. So if you're with us here today, focus on this. Grab a pen and paper, turn your phone ringer off. If you have headphones, might even want to put those on, and keep an open mind. You may hear things you've heard before. And you never put your foot in the same river twice. So give things a chance, even if you've heard them before. Make sure to write things down. I put a lot of text in my presentations, but I also take a lot of the actions and pointers, and they're just on the fly. They happen in real time, and you will want to capture them. I sometimes send out resources, but I do not send out the slides. So please grab a pen and paper. You will retain more if you take notes. So grab something that you can write with and take some notes during this presentation. If you are a student, please just say hello, say I'm a student, put a note in the chat window. So if you're a student, there's something special for you at the end of this webinar. And so stick around for that, because I do have a special offer for students that is singular to students, that only students can take advantage of. And I have directed certain parts of this webinar to advantages and things that people who are students or who will soon be graduating are doing, can do. that you can only do at that point in your career. So if you are a student, feel free to say, hello, I'm a student in the chat window, and stick around until the end because I've got something for you. Okay, to make sure you're in the right place today, if you believe that the work you do matters and you want the work you do to matter and not just be punching in the clock or work as a four-letter word kind of experience, and if you want financial independence and freedom, then you're in the right place, because that's what I believe in. I believe that the work you do matters. It's why I do this work. And I believe that you have the right to financial independence and freedom without exchanging, your life, your personal well-being, and your health for it. You're in the right place if you want a job that you enjoy in a career that has purpose. Again, this speaks right to the work as a four-letter word. I know a lot of people believe that. I don't believe it. And I think we personally, every one of us deserves better than that. So if you want that, if that's your goal, to have a job you enjoy and career that has purpose, again, you're in the right place. And we are definitely on the same page. And finally, if you want work-life balance and respect, you don't want to have to sacrifice everything for your paycheck, and you want to be respected for your contributions, then again, you are in the right place. These are things I believe in with my whole heart, and it is absolutely why I do this work and why I do these webinars. So for those of you who are returning, and I know there are several people here who join me almost every week, and thank you so much. I tell a version of the story just about every week, and this is a bit of a different version, and it's about my story, my history, and actually my vision for myself. So a little bit about my background. I grew up in a small town, and I'm a first-generation college graduate. And when you're older and more experienced, you forget how little you knew and how naive you were back in the day when you started. And I didn't know much, and I was pretty naive, and I was provincial to boot, as people often are. I mean, they come, from rural areas or small towns. So, but I had this vision that I wanted to travel the world, and I really can't put it any more clearly than that. I want all of the pages in my passport to be stamped, right? I wanted to see the world. And a first-generation college graduate, I just assumed I could get, I would get a job overseas. And I just had this very clear picture of what I wanted my life to look like. And this is more or less what that is. It's me traveling all over the world. And these are actual pictures taken across my career. And that is the vision that drove the job hunt and the job that really changed my entire career. I was working a job after college. I graduated. I got a so-so job. I got a job. I launched, as they say. And I realized after doing that job for a few years that I really wasn't getting anywhere. I looked around the cubicle farm and I thought, you know what? Everybody here is working just as hard as me. And these people probably have dreams too. And they're no closer to them. And what I'm doing isn't working. And I need to figure this out. So I did figure it out, and everything changed for me with one job hunt. And I want to go into a little bit of detail about that today. I worked at a trade association, a professional association actually, for certified public accountants in the city where I graduated college. And it was an internship I had in college. It turned into a real job. I had this kind of epiphany that, time was ticking away. My life was getting away from me. My dreams weren't going to come true, and I had to do something about it. So I started doing something about it. I started applying for jobs with international companies that I thought would get me closer to working overseas, right? I would get a job in the US, or they would hire me directly to go overseas. And that was my kind of dream and fantasy. So the company that ultimately hired me was doing accounting data warehousing, and they saw Virginia Society of Certified Public Accountants on my resume. They made the 100% completely incorrect assumption that I knew something about accounting and thought I would be great to work in their financial data warehouse team. And that's how I got the interview. That's how things happen, right? Like one keyword gets you in the door. And I got that job. And these are the photos of my experience over the years after walking through the door that opened with that job. So I know how easy it is for things to change. But what drove all of this is a vision. I didn't have a dream of working on a financial data warehouse team. I didn't have a dream even of becoming a project manager. I had a picture of how I wanted my life to be. And that may sound a bit airy-fairy. It might even sound arrogant to some of you, but I promise you, if you take the time to give respect and credit to that part of you, that vision, then that will drive everything that you do, and you'll be much more successful at every single thing we're going to talk about in this webinar. And I'll get into that in detail, but I just want to introduce this concept of a vision, and it's not some airy-fairy thing that is impractical. It actually can be the main driver for your success. So this is what I do today. I did that for almost 20 years, and I got a lot of experience, and I learned a lot about careers and career management, and I realized that there's a huge gap, that people aren't getting information. So today, I work with job seekers to help take the guesswork out of job hunting, to help you attract opportunities and better offers and more money and freedom. A big part of what I do is to help you be valued and respected for your work and for your potential. And I work with people so you can believe in yourself, so you can actually see the value that you bring to the table. Because if you don't see it and believe it, you're going to have a hard time representing yourself in the workforce, in job hunts, and negotiating for yourself. And finally, I believe in an entrepreneurial approach to job hunting. Job hunting has changed a lot, and you really do need to protect yourself. Even, you know, the most vanilla job hunting contract asks you to sign away significant rights, and most people don't know that. They're focused on their profession, their industry, and their career, and things are happening all around you that affect your career that you may not know about. And if you want to learn more about kind of my philosophy about job hunting and what I believe and why I got into this work, I did a TEDx talk in Edmonton a few years ago, and it's called The Choices We Make. And you can find that on my YouTube channel, or really anywhere. If you just search TEDx, The Choices We Make, it'll give you some insight into what brought me to do this work. And these are some of the clients I've worked with over the years at speaking engagements in my program, Job Hunt School. And this is kind of where I am today in my career and in my life. So I talked about vision. And the reason I made that huge leap, and I really was making a leap to a job that I did not have the experience on paper to do. And I really began to realize that when I actually got into the role and realized how difficult it was going to be. But I had the vision, and that's what I wanted out of my life. And I thought it's worth it. You know, it's worth taking the challenge of this job. And it's what enabled me to convince them to hire me, the vision. So this is a Steve Jobs quote, and he's right. If you're working for something that you really want, you don't have to be pushed. The vision pulls you. But here's what you may not realize, and that vision also pulls other people. So if you go into a job interview, or you're applying for a job and you know what your vision is, and that job is part of it, you know, getting that next job is part of making that vision a reality, people will respond to that. And that's something that they tend not to tell you at the Career Center. But I've seen that over and over again. When people have a vision, they have something they want to make a reality, that's when people will really step up and help you. And even if they can't give you the job, they will help you connect, because you've had the courage to articulate, to have a vision and to articulate that vision. So don't dismiss that. Don't be afraid or think it's superfluous to have a vision. It really is a big part of your career. So I want to do a disclaimer right here at the front end of this webinar today. The things that we're going to talk about are actually quite simple, but they're not easy. You will feel uncomfortable if you do them. That's normal. If you're not uncomfortable, you're not job hunting with the enthusiasm and with with the conscientiousness that you should. It is by its very nature uncomfortable, even for the most confident. So the things we're going to talk about are simple to do, but they're not easy to do. You're going to feel uncomfortable, but these tactics work. And I'm going to tell you story after story of how they've worked. I wouldn't tell you to do this. I wouldn't recommend it if it hadn't worked for me, and if I hadn't seen it work for more people than I can count. So that's why I advocate it, and that's why I advocate it, so enthusiastically. So it's simple. You're going to feel uncomfortable, but if you push through that discomfort, you will see results. So there's a picture of a pie here on the screen. And if you would like to, I would appreciate it if maybe a couple people would take a guess and guess what kind of pie this is. What kind of pie do you think that is? Just go ahead and Whatever you think it is, just drop it in the chat window. I don't know if we have a delay today. It might take a minute for it to come up. Apple. I thought so too, Georgette. I've definitely is down with apple pie. I'm partial to caramel apple, Robin. That is, you're getting sophisticated on us. Pecan pie. I agree. It looks tasty. Pear. Oh, I hadn't even thought of that, Willie. Okay. Apple. Thank you, Sonny. Rhubarb. Peach. Okay. Unfortunately, I'm afraid you're all incorrect. This is humble pie, and you have all been eating way too much of it. And I know this because I see resumes and cover letters, and I talk to job seekers. And yeah, Denise, amen. It is humble pie. For you to get a job that is maybe a little bit of a stretch for you, you have got to quit eating humble pie. We're raised to be humble, and I'm not saying to turn into an egotistical braggart, but you have got to step away from your childhood training, and you have got to look at yourself objectively and maybe even a little glowingly, and stop eating humble pie and asking for people to recognize what's great about you when you won't recognize it. This is actually one of the biggest challenges I see to people, trying to get jobs. They just try to, create this image, and then they just hope and beg and pray that that this person who's looking at me will see what's great about me. And, you have to learn how to tactfully communicate that. And I'm going to give you some tips to do that today. But when it comes to job hunting, set the humble pie aside. It does not serve you. You have a right to recognize and to acknowledge the good work that you have done, the wins that you have had, the triumphs, and the things that you have overcome. And these should not be things you whisper to your closest friends because you don't want to sound like a braggart. You have a right to these things. So just put it away. You bring it out later. Your job hunt is not the place for humble pie. So that's the first thing. And that's probably one of the first paradigm shifts. And it also might make a lot of people uncomfortable. But that is something you really are going to have to get past while you're job hunting. And I'm going to ask you to do some exercises today, or take these exercises away to do in the future that will help you get past this, this humble pie that we all have consumed so much of. Okay. As you're moving forward, you've got your vision, you've got what you want to do. I would advise you to not think about applying for jobs. Think about choosing an experience that is most likely to take you closer where you want to be and to the experiences you want to have and how you want to live. No, it's not very British, Hans. Thank you. So we're all looking for jobs. We all have bills to pay, credit cards to pay down, student loans to pay off. I get that. And you may take a survival job. But when it comes to your job, you're going to spend a big part of your life there. So think about the experiences you're going to have at a job. And where is it going to take you? And is it going to get you closer to the people you want to be around, the experiences you want to have, and how you want to live? And when I think about how I managed to pull off that huge leap in my career, this is actually what it came down to. I didn't apply for the job. I knew that I was willing to show up and, to get up, dress up, show up, put a smile on my face and be positive, enthusiastic, and learn what I had to learn, because I knew that if I got a job at that company, I would probably eventually get overseas and travel the world. And that's what happened. And this is when you're thinking from your vision rather than your bank account. So as much as you can afford to, try to think about, is this going to take me where I want to go? Because if it will, then when you go into that interview, when you start having a dialogue with people about it, that will come through. And that will make you shine in a way that absolutely no skills or degree in the world can compete with. So some of you may have seen this cartoon. We're looking for someone with the wisdom of a 50-year-old, the experience of a 40-year-old, and the drive of a 30-year-old, and the pay scale of a 20-year-old. This is cruelly realistic in some ways. And it's kind of a cynical view, but I do talk with a lot of people who feel this way. And it's actually not true. Enthusiasm and confidence can and does trump skills. I have interviewed people and I've talked with recruiters who have told me that when somebody comes in and they're hungry and they're ambitious and they're positive and they want it, that they will give that person the job over someone who is fully qualified, but really not reaching. Their enthusiasm is gone, their passion might be gone. And I understand definitely, Georgette, sometimes that money is there. But I really want to set the bar high. And I want you to understand that even if you don't have the skills, you can swipe a job from somebody who does, because enthusiasm and confidence are so very appealing to people. And I want you to think about this next thing. What qualifies you to do a job? What qualifies you to do a given job? So just think about that. There are some jobs that have very specific qualifications, a medical doctor, a surgeon, but most jobs are very non-specific. And a lot of enthusiasm and confidence and desire can quickly close the gap with skills, that you lack in skills. So think about, what is really going to qualify me to do a job? Because that is what will get you hired into a job at a level that you may think is a bit beyond you. And that is what you will need to know to convince the hiring manager. What do I have to do to get you to hire me? And I want to share an observation with you, and it's this. 50% of the people I talk to are applying for jobs they're overqualified for. About 50%. So when someone sees you applying for a job that you could do in your sleep, they think that you lack the confidence to take it to the next level. You don't have the know-how to take it to the next level, or that you will leave, that you've given up and you're compromising, and they can't depend on you for enthusiasm. So ask yourself, are you one of these people who's applying for a job that you're overqualified for? Not because you don't want something more, but you're not sure how to get it. So a couple of truths about job hunting. The job description is not the job. It's probably the main reason you shouldn't let requisites that you see prevent you from applying for a job. So if you see a certain number of years of experience, ignore it. That's what they think it will take, but that's not necessarily what it takes. So don't let that prevent you from applying. The job description is not the job. If you see a job that you're interested in, one of the things I suggest you do is go on LinkedIn and find that job for that company and see which people are doing it. What can you learn about the job and the type of people who do the job by reverse engineering it and going and finding the people who are doing that job right now? Now, this won't work for every single job, but it will work for a lot of them, especially if you're in the corporate world. So when you see a job description, something you're thinking of applying for, find the people in that job today and go and look at their profiles. You can connect with them. You can do any number of things. All kinds of research can be gleaned from this, and you can find all kinds of patterns from this. So when you're looking for a job, go and find that job and that person on LinkedIn and see what you can learn from that. Yeah. And Carrie, you mentioned you can see their profile. You can see how they describe their work. You can it is a real reality check, and you will be surprised what you learn by doing that. So here's another truth. People hire people they want to be around and who will make their life easier. I've seen plenty of people not get hired because they intimidate the team members or one of the team members. I don't want to hire this person. They'll come on and outshine me. I mean, that's a reality. And it also makes it easier to get a job that you might be a little bit underqualified for. That can actually work in your favor if you show that enthusiasm and that desire and that willingness to learn. If you don't have any connections, a cold email saying, hello, okay. Yeah, Harold, I think so. That you've got to do that because you've got to build that relationship. So keep this in mind. You see numbers of years of experience, and you see all these things, and that can make you, that can really turn you off for a job. But the reality is that once they get you in the door, it's all about, do I want to work with this person? Are they going to fit in here? Are they going to make my life easier? And here's another reality, and it's true in this market more than it has been in years. Employers are looking at workers that they might not have looked at in the past. So those three things combine to make it a really great time to go for a job that you might not have gone for in the past. So don't let job description limits stop you from applying. I mean, you really have to honestly ask yourself, are you slamming the door in your own face because you fear hearing no? David, I'm going to mark your question, and I'm going to talk about this. I'm getting an interview for a job where you don't quite fit toward the end. So that's the first thing I want to ask you. And I want to show you a cartoon. I think we've all experienced this. Anybody who's ever worked or, applied for a job, been nervous about the interview, been nervous about starting, and then you end up being this person. You start out and you're nervous. Oh, I hope I can do this job. I hope I'll be okay. I don't really know what I'm doing. And then after the first year, you're like, I can't believe I didn't aim higher, because nobody here knows what they're doing. Has anybody ever experienced this? The role intimidates you and you're afraid to go for something higher. And then you get the job and you realize, yeah, exactly. Usually it doesn't take that long. So please burn this cartoon into your head and realize that the most intimidating part of the job is when you're going through that interview process. Go for something bigger. You have to do that for yourself, because it is extremely unlikely that anyone in your career is going to look at you and say, I know you don't think you can do it, but I believe in you and you can do it. That almost never happens at work. So you've got to stand up and you've got to do it for yourself. And I see all your comments. Thank you so much. Carrie, great comment. I'll talk to that later. So just please sear this into your brain and realize that you can do more than you think you can. And yes, you may have some scary experiences in that job. This job that I always go back to as being the pivotal job in my career. The first year of that job scared me to death. It was probably the hardest professional year of my life. I shed tears. I'm not going to be proud here. I'm going to own it. It scared me to death. And I'm sure that more than one person looked at me and said, well, she's here now. I hope she can do it. And I did do it. And I ended up being one of the, and I hate to brag on myself, but I really want to be frank here. And I want you to realize how quickly things can turn around for you. I ended up being one of the top project managers there. But when I started, I was way behind the 8 ball, and it made me work harder. And closing that gap made the people there respect me more. So you've got to push yourself, because other people won't push you. Okay, so right now I want you to stop and think. What has been stopping you from applying from jobs? Is it years of experience? Is it education? Is it that you read the responsibilities and you picture something in your head that starts making you nervous? I'm not sure I could do that. Is it a belief you have about yourself? Because these are the typical things that stop people. So years of experience, forget it. You can talk your way around that. We'll talk more about that later. And I don't mean to be deceitful or any of that. I would never advocate that, and that's not what I'm talking about. But years of experience is just a way of getting you to prove that you can do the job. And there are a lot more ways to prove you can do the job. Yeah. Again, I know require can be intimidating, but I'll talk a little bit about job descriptions and how basically they get thrown together and they last for years, and they rarely mean anything. People just want somebody who can do the job. They do use it to thin the resumes out, but you just can't let that stop you, or you'll never get anywhere. Okay, so think about what it is for you and jot it down, because that's the thing we want to zero in on. What is it that stops you from applying for a job you want? So one of the big ones is I don't have the right experience. So whether this is in years, and if it is in years, set that aside, or whether it's in the specific things they're asking for, a couple of things. If you want the job and you have 50% of what's there, apply. You have nothing to lose. If they do not want you, they will set you aside. But don't slam the door in your own face. These job descriptions are laughable. They're written by an intern in a rush. They're never updated. Rarely are they accurate. And rarely do they really truly represent the job and what's needed. So don't let that stop you. The only thing that should stop you is, I don't have the time to invest in this, or I don't want it badly enough. If you want it, go for it. So there's no such thing as a perfect hire, especially in this market, and you can't train for enthusiasm. And if you want it, you'll show up with that enthusiasm. So I want you to keep those things in mind. There is not going to be a perfect hire applying for this job. And usually if there is, what happens is they hire somebody who's overqualified. And do you really want, I mean, you might be in a job now where you're overqualified. I mean, wouldn't you rather be in a job that you're excited about and that is going to challenge you? I think most people would. Sonny, please start applying for jobs at the 50% level. You've got nothing to lose. Okay, so this is how I want to, this is an exercise that I want you to go through to audit what you do, what you offer. I want you to get a piece of paper, 2 columns, and on the left side column, I want you to write down every job you've ever done. And this is anything. This is, I raked leaves every summer. I cut grass. I was a babysitter. I was a dog groomer. I worked in my family business. My parents had a roller skating rink when I was growing up. Never went on my resume, but I learned more about customer service and human nature and responsibility and showing up on time, working in that skating rink than at any other point in my life. So every single thing you've ever done, don't slam the door on something because it's not a real job. Okay, so that's what I want you to put on the left-hand column. And then on the right-hand column, what skills did you use? What talent did you tap into? What deliverables and results did you bring? And then remember to add up the things you did over time. Because I worked at an association and I put a newsletter out every month for years that ended up being, 36, 48, I don't know how many newsletters that I got out on time every single month. And that's significant. So don't forget to add up the things you're doing over time. Make a note of what you delivered. Add in timeliness and dependability. I got it in on time every month. What you organized, communicated, resolved or fixed, maintained, created. And I want you to jot down the headlines of the stories you remember from those jobs, right? Because really jobs are just a series of stories. I'm going to talk about stories more later. So when you capture all this, and most people just remember the highlights and they all too frequently remember the lowlights, you focus on your mistakes instead of your wins. It's really important at the beginning of your job hunt to do an audit like this because you've got a lot more going for you than you think you do. If you get stuck, reach out to your former colleagues, your friends, and ask them what they remember. But this is worth it. And once you do it, all you have to do is add to it moving forward, and it will underpin your job search and your career and really give you a good foundation and really make it possible for you to assess, hey, this is who I am and this is what I have to bring to the table. And that's really important. So once you know these things, keep a file, keep a log, however you work, and then make sure you have got a really good listing of your wins, your bonuses, your triumphs, the things you turned around, the fires you put out. And then, because I know they're living in your head, I want you to make a list of your losses, of the things that didn't go well, which are the things we tend to focus on. And then be sure to capture what you learned. So if you did something, things didn't work out for you, regardless of the circumstances, capture it and make sure that you note what you learned. That's really important, and it'll help you do a better job of processing that. So once you have those things, absolutely, because this is exactly what we're talking about, is those transferable skills, Hans. So you've got these things, right? You've got them in the language that you understand, and in a document that's personal to you. So this is what I want you to do next. It's how you talk about these things that matter. Now, for those of you who follow me on LinkedIn, you may have seen a post where I used this graphic, and it really got a lot of people stirred up a couple of weeks ago. So I'm going to take you through the 3 phases of this graphic. So the first one is, I work at McDonald's. Nobody gives props to to a McDonald's jobs. We make fun of these jobs. Do you want fries with that? So here's phase 2 of that. So the first phase is like perspective. And then, we give these jobs labels. So the label for the job is, I have a part-time job in fast food, or, I work at McDonald's, and both of these evoke a very specific picture. Okay. A very specific picture. Just like I said, I work on Wall Street. That evokes a very specific, different picture. So then here's the final panel. I handle transactions for a multi-billion-dollar company and industry on a daily basis and help provide around $2 billion to the U.S. economy each year. So I posted this, and a lot of people thought that it was great, and a lot of people said, "Oh, this is awful, and it's dishonest," and it's a meme, so it's not meant to be taken quite literally. But honestly, most people diminish their work. Now, some people would call this embellishing, and one guy posted he posted a comment, and he said, "I was a fuel transfer technician in high school." And then he said, then he typed, "I pumped gas." And really what you are in a given job is to be determined by you. The CIO of McDonald's, the CEO of McDonald's for several years was a guy named Don Thompson. He was the U.S. CEO, and Don Thompson worked at McDonald's. And I'm sure when he was this, and I mean, asking, "Do you want fries with that?" worked in McDonald's before he was ever the CEO. So don't let the label of a job define you. You don't have to embellish, but I find that most people diminish their role because they don't want to be braggy, because they got a big mouthful of humble pie. And as I said, you've got to let go of that, because your job is more than a label. And you are more than the job description. So that's why that breakdown exercise is important. And it's really important that you learn how to communicate the essence of your work and what you brought to it. And that can be tricky. And we're often not taught how to do that. But I don't advocate duplicity or any kind of false embellishment. But I also don't advocating this humble pie approach to "I was just a fast food worker," because fast food workers are what keep McDonald's running and every other fast food restaurant in the world. And you can view yourself one of two ways: as part of a bigger, making a contribution to something bigger, which is what you're going to do at any single job, or a nobody who asks, "Do you want fries with that?" And that says a lot about who you are. So I just want you to remember, once you get that audit, think about how you're describing the work you did. Are you just, saying, "I did this, this label job"? Or are you really getting deeper and talking about what you brought to the job and what that experience was about? Okay, next, I want to talk about street lighting. Type in what % of time you spend job hunting on the job boards, if you wouldn't mind. Just, rough guess how much time you spend on your job boards. So type that in when you get the chance. I found this cartoon, and it's a little bit blurry. I'll read it. The guy says, "I'm looking for my quarter I dropped." And the police officer says, "Well, did you drop it here?" And the guy says, "No, I dropped it 2 blocks down the street." And the police officer says, "Well, why are you looking for it here?" And he says, "Because the light is better here." That is how people job hunt. The light is shining on the job boards, but that's not where what you're looking for is most of the time. I would advocate that you not spend more than 40% of your time on the job boards, and that's probably a little bit high. Like I said, it's simple, but it's not easy, and you're going to be uncomfortable. So I want to show you this story from one of my favorite online kind of social feeds. It's called Humans of New York. If you don't follow it, it's quite compelling. So this is a story that I hear a lot, and I saw this on Humans of New York, and I wanted to save it. I graduated last May with an accounting degree and moved to the city, but 4 months had passed and I didn't have a job yet. I probably sent out my resume to 30 different places, and I couldn't afford to keep waiting for people to call me back. I'm sure this sounds familiar to everyone on this call. So I went to the Strip with all the car dealerships and started going door to door to see if they had any openings in accounting. I've always loved cars. I used to always read Consumer Reports with my dad, so I thought it would be a good fit. The lady at BMW was a bit standoffish. Then I went to Audi. They were great, super welcoming, but they didn't have any positions at the moment. Then I got to Jaguar Land Rover, which was my first choice, so I was working up to it, and they sat me down right there for an interview. I was there all afternoon, and then they said, "We like what we see. Can you start tomorrow?" I ran outside and called my parents. My dad was so proud of me. I was so proud of myself. I know that many of you cannot literally walk down the street like this young woman did, but you've got to get away from the job boards. There are so many other places that you can go. A lot of jobs aren't advertised. A lot of people want to hire people who have the initiative, the get up and go, and determination to walk through the door. Think about who you would hire. And I'm going to talk, David, I see your comment here. I'm going to talk about other places you can go. Since many of us can't walk up and down the street. I have literally walked up and down the street with my speaker sheet in my hand. I got my first paid work in this career doing that. It is really important that you minimize the job boards because it is just a cattle call. So this is a young woman who joined my program, Job Hunt School. Her name is Destiny, and her experience was similar. When she started the program, she realized she'd been spending all of her time on job boards. So what she did was she started joining groups that interested her. She wanted to join groups that talked about educating people that had learning disabilities. She met a bunch of new people, and she eventually got the job that she really wanted through the people that she met in one of those groups. Denise, you actually can do that if you're looking for a corporate job. You just have to do it a little bit differently. But you can certainly do something other than the job board. So kind of meet in the middle. So this process does work. I want to give you, before we talk about that, I want to give you a couple of ideas. If you're saying, okay, great, Courtney, you say it could work. I can't walk down the street. What should I do? Here are some things you can do. Go into the groups related to interests that you have. So that might be if you work in the Big Four, go into one of the Big Four groups on LinkedIn. If you work in advertising, whatever you work in, what you don't want to do is go in and beg for a job. Does anybody know anybody who's hiring? You want to be a little more indirect, and you want to build relationships by asking for information. Go to the website for every conference that goes on in your industry. You should be able to download the conference brochure, the conference catalog. It will have a list of all the speakers. Reach out to those speakers and connect with them. And you can just reach out with an email or a note that says, I saw that you spoke at this conference. I would love to have heard your session or been at your session. I'm looking to make some connections in the industry. Just start communicating with people. Particularly the people who are leaders in their industry who go and speak at these conferences, they will respond to you. They will respect what you're doing and how you're trying to do it, and they will help you. Some people won't, but I'm online all day long, and people who are out there taking initiative and hustling are the ones I respond to because I know they're really doing a little bit more. The more somebody hustles, the more that you are likely to help them. That's the rule that I found. So go to the conference, download the brochures, go to trade associations. Trade associations are always looking to bring good people into their profession. Go to the trade association, tell them what you're trying to do, ask for their help. They swim in that sea. So that's trade associations, that's conferences, and that's groups on LinkedIn or Facebook. So just go where your people are. Okay, so that's 3 tips for trying to do that. Instead of street lighting, do what I call, quote, in quotes, street walking. Don't underestimate how important the basics are. And I'm going to tell you 2 stories. You may have seen this meme, 10 things that require 0 talent. Everybody thinks that they need to have credentials, letters behind their name, a master's degree. But in real life, those things really don't matter because I don't care where you got your master's degree from or what grade point average you got it at. If I can't depend on you to manage a project or to deliver something on time or to chase a vendor or to make it happen, what good does your degree and your 10 years of experience do me? Because you're just a slacker who's bored in your job and won't do any work. And we have all been with these people. You know, one of the worst people I ever worked with had the most credentials of anybody I've ever worked with. What people really want is somebody they can depend on to be on time, to do the work, to bring in the effort, to be positive, to get up and to get up and show up. If you only do 5 of these, you're ahead of most of the people out there. And I want to tell you 2 stories where this has come in. Any Pink fans out there? I love Pink. I think I have all of her albums. I'm a huge Pink fan. So I travel around a lot, and I spent on and off. I've spent a lot of time in Key West, where I met a guy, and he told me the story of his career. Thank you. Yes, Pink fans, say it. Absolutely. Thank you, Harold. Thank you, Robin. Okay, so here's the deal. So I'm talking to this guy. I love to ask people about their careers and how they got their jobs, and he tells me the story of his career. Now, he is a Midwestern boy, and he grew up and he went to college at the University of Nebraska in Lincoln. Anybody go to that school? I don't even know what their mascot is. But anyway, this is where he graduated. He has a really extraordinary job today, and I'll tell you about that in a minute. This is how he got that job. When he was at the University of Nebraska in Lincoln, he worked in the auditorium, the college auditorium. And for some reason, I don't know why, big groups like Fleetwood Mac would go to that. Thank you, Cornhuskers, would go to the University of Nebraska, and they would do like a rehearsal show. So before they would go on a big world tour, they'd come to the University of Nebraska and they would do a show, like just to get them started, to work the kinks out. I don't know why. And as a college student, he happened to have a job as the stage manager, or some college student typically viewed as a nothing job in that auditorium. So he got to see Fleetwood Mac, and I think the band that Lionel Richie was in, which I cannot remember now, but he got to see all these bands. And I said, well, how did that turn into the job you have now? And actually, one of his jobs now is booking Pink concerts all over the world and managing her show when she goes on global tours. He's done that for Elton John. He's done it for Cher. He's done it for, thank you, Carrie, the Commodores. He's done it for all these huge bands. So what happened was, he was doing this job. All these big bands came through, and the road manager for the Commodores handed him a card at the end of the night one night and said, when do you graduate? He goes, I graduate next year. He goes, when you graduate, why don't you give me a call? And the reason that guy did that was because he showed up on time. He had a positive attitude. He was competent. This is a college senior. We all know you don't know anything when you're in college, right? You're young, you're inexperienced. So you really just got to focus on getting the basics right, because that's what tells people, hey, I can depend on this kid. This kid will be a good hire. And he's here doing this because he loves music and he loves the show. So today, his name is Bill, and my friend Bill just has an unbelievable career. He goes to he's always at the Telluride Film Festival. He always goes to the Grammy Awards every single year. Now, you wouldn't know his name. You wouldn't recognize him if you saw him. But he got the best job in the world just by being around what he loved, the experience he wanted to have, and just doing a basic good job, just showing competence. Employers will give you a chance if you dress up and show up with a positive attitude and a willingness to learn. So that's why they chose it. Big football stadium that holds something like 90K. So anyway, that's I guess that makes sense. So thank you, Whitney. So just keep this in mind. I mean, I hear stories like this all the time, and I'm going to tell you another one. I knew a pilot. He flew for essentially a millionaire who had his own plane and owned his own sports team. I don't want to get into too much detail, but there was a hangar at the airport where they stored the G5 or whatever private jet. So this is the captain had this Jeep, was responsible for the hangar, for the plane, and he flew this rich guy around. And one day, this kid shows up, and he's got about, I don't know, 50 or 60 hours in a prop plane. And he shows up at the hangar, and he wants to be a private jet pilot. And he shows up and he says, I like to fly, and I'm a pilot, and is there anything I can do around here? So the captain of this private jet said, yeah, you can empty the trash cans and clean the toilet. And he did it. And he hung around and he hung around, and he got to know the mechanic, and he got to know the captain, and he got a job in the second seat on that private jet because he showed up, he established trust, And today he is a pilot. He is a captain in AT&T's flight of private planes. He didn't show up and say, will you give me a job? He showed up and he proved his trustworthiness and his commitment. Now, again, you can't always pull this off, but often you can. And what it shows is, I want this bad enough to empty trash cans and clean toilets. And you show who you are in those smaller jobs. So, and I've got many more stories like this. It really does work. So that's why reaching out to, people who speak at conferences or people at conferences, or reaching out to trade associations and getting away from the job boards generates a lot of possibility. So don't be afraid to do that. Once you get into an interview, don't focus on the job description that they've given you. You want to you want to listen and you want to look. Ultimately, they're going to hire the person who can solve the problems. So I want you to listen and look for the problems that the person in the role is going to have to solve. Because 3 years of experience doesn't tell you whether or not that person is going to be able to solve the problem. Talking to them will. And that's how you can talk your way around that limit of experience. So look for, what problems will the person in the role you want have to solve? Next, what challenges will appear regularly? And that could just be like, I have to get out a monthly newsletter. That's your challenge. Can you meet that challenge? Can you deliver? That's what you need to convince them of. And what will you need me to consistently deliver? Because if you can answer those questions in a positive way, they will hire you, and they won't care if you've got a master's degree or how many years of experience. Now, remember, fit and attitude are also going to be really important, but listen and look for those three things: the problems that they want the person to solve, the challenges that they need them to regularly deal with, and what needs to be delivered consistently. And that'll get you a long way there. So this is Zara, and she joined Job Hunt School a few months ago, and she used we have a tool called the Unforgettable Interview Tool, and it helps you line up what you've done with what you can do in your next job. And a lot of times you go in there blind, you do your research on the company, and you don't really parse out your work and what you bring to the table. So if you do that, it makes it a little bit easier for you to articulate, hey, this is what I have to offer. So I talked about the 3 stories. The reason you want to have stories is because it makes it easier for you to brag without bragging. So as you go through your audit of what you do and the jobs you've had and the stories that you've been a part of, I want you to try to pull out 3 stories, and these can change. The first story you want to have is a bounce back from failure story. So this should be a story about what made you who you are today. We all have one. It may not come immediately to mind, but have a bounce back from failure story, because this is the kind of story that shows what you're made of. This is the kind of story that will show what you're made of. So that's the first one you want to have. The next one you want to have is the you can't do that story. And this is a time when somebody told you that you couldn't do something and you said, right, I'm going to go ahead and do that anyway. So that shows, persistence and determination, and that you can face challenges. So you want to have a story. And I'm sure there's one in your career, in your academic career, somewhere in your past, about a time where somebody told you that you couldn't do something and you turned around and you proved them wrong. And finally, you want to have a story about a time that you had a huge success doing something that you love. This is when the humble pie is got to be far away from you at this moment, right? You have to tell a story about a triumph that you had. And it should be doing something that you really love. So make sure you have those 3 stories, because those are the types of things that compensate and that fill the gap between years of experience and specific skill sets. So 3 stories: bounce back from failure, a story that they told you couldn't do it, but you pushed through and you did it anyway. And then finally, success doing something you love. And Whitney, I see your question here. Yeah, absolutely. Agree with you, Whitney. Okay. So make sure you've got those 3 stories. All right, now we're going to have some fun. So I don't know how many students we have on the call today, and I know that it is for recent graduates. People getting ready to graduate and recent graduates often talk about the challenge of wanting a job with no experience. So I want to share a reality with you, and those of you that are a little bit further along in your career, please chime in here. If you are about to graduate, or you have graduated within the past year, you are don't take this the wrong way. That's why I show you these cute pictures. You are the puppy at the dog park. If you've ever been to a dog park, you've ever been anywhere where there's dogs and puppies, dogs are nice, but puppies are better, right? Look at these. I mean, they're just adorable. Like, everybody loves a puppy. In your career, you are the puppy. You may not like this analogy, but you're the puppy in that first year after you graduate. And I'm not trying to diminish your intelligence or your ability. What I'm trying to say is that year, that fresh graduate glow has a real appeal, and you can get things during that time that you can't get at any other time in your career. And often you don't realize it, which is why I'm telling you, if you are a student, take advantage of this, because it is a real thing. So, and this is what I mean by that. Everybody kind of has there's this nostalgic period when you first graduate and you're making that transition from, kind of like, maybe you're not a child when you're in college, but you are truly stepping into adulthood when you graduate. So when you are a recent graduate, use that, right? Use that. I recently graduated. Could I get a stipend for my first professional wardrobe? Would you be willing to waive the conference fee? I've recently graduated. I don't have much of a budget, but I really would like to attend your conference. This works all the time. I'm a recent graduate. I'm trying to learn about your industry. Would you mind if I observed this meeting? Would you mind if I just came and observed? I don't know how this specifically might apply to your industry or the industry you're interested in, but I take you back to those two stories. My friend Bill got that job because he just wanted to be around concerts and shows and that type of world, and the opportunity showed up. And the same thing for the pilot. He wanted to be around airplanes. He wanted a job as a pilot, and he showed up. And the next thing you know, he's sitting in the second seat in a G5. So remember, if you are a recent graduate, you really can cash that in for about a year. I just graduated. Can I? Yeah, Michael, good point. They can buy them cheap, but I'm not even talking about jobs necessarily. I'm just talking about access. I'm just talking about, views into worlds that you might not get. There's a certain glow that comes with that in that period of your life. So if that is you, ask for something. All they can do is say no. No, we can't afford to give you a free conference ticket. I got a free conference ticket when I first started. I said, look, I'm a solo entrepreneur, I don't have the money. And they said, no problem. And I got a $250 conference ticket. All right, I talk about this at the end of almost every webinar I do, and that is the golden rule of success, and it really applies to job seekers. Winners are people who do what losers are afraid or unwilling to do. The person who wants it the most and who's willing to push the hardest for it is the one who's going to get the job almost every time. The person who just wants it badly, because that comes through. And I get asked for help all week long, every week. I get messages. These are some that I got off of LinkedIn this week. Is it better to apply through an organization's website or LinkedIn? This happened. They closed the position. What should I do next? I was riffed last week. I'm seeking new opportunities. Can you help me? You really do have to decide, to equip yourself to know what to do and to have a place to go get your questions answered in your job hunt. And the people who do that are the ones who tend to get ahead. And this is a message that I got from, this person was in job hunt school, and this person got the answers, and she didn't know what she was doing. She was a bit lost in her job hunt, and she got the answers. And this was the outcome from her. She got a job that she loves. She loves the culture, and she feels that it's her dream job. So decide how much help you need and seek out that help. Yes, Harold, you made a comment. Most higher ups love to give advice and have mentees. They really do love to do that. They really do. Rift, reduction in force, Ando. So if you want help with your job hunt, um, job job hunt school is where all of the teaching in this and every webinar comes from. And it is a great option to get the information and the training and the knowledge and confidence you need. This is a young woman who graduated. She took job hunt school right after she graduated. She's on her second job. She used job hunt school to land both of these jobs. So you definitely want to be one of those people who's willing to do what someone else isn't willing to do to get the job. Job hunt school has 5 modules. We cover how to figure out what it is you want to do, how to get that vision, because once you have that vision and you know where to go, it makes your choices more clear. The second module is about making contact, right? So not street lighting, but going out and making contact at professional associations, at conferences, or reaching out to the people at conferences, learning the tactics to get past the masses and the crowds that are applying for the jobs that are posted, and get to the jobs that you really want. This is Joe Sprocket. I worked with Joe just a few weeks ago, helped him with his LinkedIn profile, and bam, he landed a job. He was in Colorado. He landed a job in Texas. So it worked really well for him. We talked about this on the slide, the Winnie the Pooh slide. If you don't learn it from me, learn it from somebody. Learn how to write about your career in a way that people can connect to. So this is Caitlin, and Caitlin worked with me on LinkedIn Boost. She had me work with her in her profile, and then she joined Job Hunt School. And she had great success with this because one of her challenges was a tremendously talented candidate, but she was having trouble articulating and showing people, hey, this is what I can do, and this is what I have done. So remember, how you write about what you do really matters. David, there's going to be a replay. Part of Job Hunt School is LinkedIn Boost. I'm sure many of you know that all the recruiters and all the employers are focusing on LinkedIn Boost now. These are 2 people who use the LinkedIn Boost program to transform the kind of results that they were getting in their job hunt. John McCaskill is a Navy SEAL. John's a great guy. I encourage you to follow him on LinkedIn. Your class absolutely launched my LinkedIn into the stratosphere. And Alagu is an international business consultant who had a very similar experience. They both use LinkedIn Boost to redo their headlines, their banners, their mastheads, and their summaries, and got tremendous results. When you're job hunting, you need to know what rules to break. We've talked about some of them here. So that is something that is worth exploring. What can and what should you do in terms of what rules can you break and what rules should you follow? So that's worth knowing. And we cover that in the connect section. And the close section, I talked about this at the opening. Make sure that you understand what the restrictive clauses are in modern day employment contracts. Too many people are signing contracts with logistics restrictions. You can't get another job in a hospital in this city for 2 years. Or 50 miles, and the job doesn't work out and you leave after a year and you have to commute 60 miles to get another job because you signed a vanilla employment contract. Things like that happen all the time. So if you don't get that information here, make sure you get it somewhere, and also make sure that you know how to negotiate. Gaurav, I'll hit that question in just a second. So those are the 5 modules. You'll also get a 5-video negotiation series. I introduced you to Destiny a few slides back. She is one of our scholars who got a 25% pay increase, and she used the information in this 5-video negotiation series to get that 25% pay increase. We had another Job Hunt School scholar who got an extra week of vacation. All the modules, lifetime membership to this program, is an almost $2,000 value, and it is yours for life. It's totally downloadable and it's totally portable. PDFs, you can download MP3s, you can listen to it on your commute, in your car, wherever you want to go. You get all the updates for the rest of your career. You guys talked about ATS and scanning. There's an ATS scanner. You can run your resume through it, and it will tell you how well your resume scores against the keywords. You'll also get professional quality photos for your posts and for your LinkedIn masthead, free design resources, an automated cover letter writer, a tool that you can market test your profile photo, also a tool to find unpublished email addresses, which is really important if you're job hunting, being able to reach out to people. You'll get a resume building tool and a free tool to organize and track your applications. So you get a lot of tools to kind of help you get your head around and get a bit more organized in your job hunt. Don't job hunt alone. I would love for you to join Job Hunt School, but if you don't, please connect with me on LinkedIn and please keep joining us on these webinars. Don't job hunt alone because it really can be isolating and it really can be hard on your confidence. Job Hunt School has an online community where you get live coaching, you can network with other job seekers, and you can get answers to your questions. Once you join, you're a member of this community for as long as you want to be. So I talked about the LinkedIn Boost bonus and the negotiation bonus. You'll also get a Resign Right package, which shows you how to resign your current job. So if you're leaving one job and starting another one, there are a lot of tricky steps you have to kind of go through as you're leaving your job. Everybody always has a lot of questions about that. So in Job Hunt School, we cover that. And we also give you some mindset tools to help you kind of get a clear head and get focused and get some clarity about what you want to do next. All of those together are a $549 value. These are some really, really great tools. Also, I do live coaching each week. So these are private small group coaching sessions that very similar to this, except they're live and you get to ask questions. Just because, you know, when you're job hunting, very specific things to you come up in your job hunt, and you really need to have a conversation about those. You can't really cover it in a comment or in a chat window. If you're interested in Job Hunt School, it's a 30-day, 100% money back guarantee. I know that often when we're job hunting, or, you know, our budgets are stretched, or we're not having any money come in, you're nervous about outlaying money. So if that's you, you have 30 days to test this program out. Be sure to read this money back guarantee if you decide to invest in Job Hunt School, but there is a money back guarantee to take the risk away from you. And I just want to include this because people ask, well, what really is Job Hunt School? And I think Brad Don said it best. And it's basically someone plainly telling you in unfiltered real language how to get from where you are to where you want to be in your career. And that's what this program is. And that's why I created it. The total value of the program is nearly $4,000, $3,943, and it retails for $499. But I talked about a student special, and I want to make sure I get this because I know we're coming right up on the hour. If you are a student and you are interested in taking Job Hunt School, there's a student discount that reduces that price to $197, and you can find that at jobhuntschool.com. Go to jobhuntschool.com and look for this right here, this little box, and that will give you the information on the student offering. And that is $197. I know that our student budgets are limited. I just read an article last night that said 40% of college students are food insecure. So I understand that if you're in college, you may not have that money, but while you are still there, this is a great discount. For those of you who are professionals who want Job Hunt support, there is an offer here in the window. If you have questions, you can ask me about that. I'm going to leave this now. You can get all the information you need at jobhuntschool.com, and I am going to stay on and answer questions. So if you have any questions about Job Hunt School, feel free. Okay, here we go. I'm going to start right now and hit these questions. Kevon, does that student offering apply if you just went back to school full time? If you are a student, it applies. If you're a student at Harley-Davidson School, if you're a student at Harvard, it applies. It's not just an academic student. If you are a student, it applies. So yeah, if you want to learn more about that, go for it. Michael, you are so welcome. Enjoy the rest of your weekend too. All right, I'm going to scroll down and see if I can hit some of these questions. Gaurav, as far as writing a great CV, it's hard to answer and here because that's a pretty extensive question. Are you talking about a CV or a resume? That would be the first question I'd ask you. Make sure you understand the difference and make sure you understand what the employer wants, because a resume and CV, very different. In terms of nailing the interview, research and practice. I cannot emphasize that enough. Know who you're talking to, practice before the interview, and listen in the interview. LinkedIn Boost is available. LinkedIn Boost, David, to answer your question, it is available as a standalone, but it's not going to be for much longer. If you were to purchase LinkedIn Boost, I recommend getting the copy edit, and I will help you write your headline and copy edit your profile. And I will prorate the price of LinkedIn Boost, whether you buy just the regular program or the copy edit, to the cost of Job Hunt School. So LinkedIn Boost is available as a standalone for the time being, and I will prorate that price. Okay, just going to scroll down to see if there are any more questions. Thank you all for joining today. If you want to sign off, please feel free. I think we've covered the content, but I'm definitely, all right, Gaurav. What about having a 5-year gap in career, backlogs, and academics? Yeah, you can get hired, Gaurav. I mean, I was having this conversation about gaps in your work history. You know what? People take time off for various reasons. This is not a scarlet letter. I really dislike it when people feel shamed because they took time off. It's ridiculous. Have a clear, concise, short, and I emphasize short explanation for, any gaps in your resume, but you don't owe people an intimate explanation of why you spent your time the way you spent it. So any of this like gap shaming needs to stop. It's ridiculous. I like to see it when people have taken time off, because I think most of the world is overworked. So please don't feel like that is a cloud over you. It doesn't need to be. Just going to scroll down. If you have any more questions, drop them in. I'll try to get to them. Thank you, everyone, for providing Cornhuskers and Commodores. My memory is definitely not what it used to be. I don't see any more questions. Just going to keep scrolling down. I'm a student here in India. How's the student bonus work for me? I'll tell you what, Gaurav, if you go to the jobhuntschool.com, you'll see, click on that and complete the form, send me the information, and we'll figure it out. I ask when you go there and you click on the student application, you will see, I just ask you to fill out a short form and say where you are in school. And then I will respond to you and send you a link to complete your purchase. So if you do that, we can work it out for your situation. Lance, you're welcome. Thanks for joining. Really appreciate it. The discounts are for students. If you are financially strapped, please, on the same page, you will find a scholarship application. And that is Salisu. I hope I'm saying your name right. So I understand that, people have different financial obligations and discretionary income amounts. So those are two options, a student discount. And if you can't afford the full price, look into the scholarship. There's a link on the page. Gaurav, here in the US, people consider it something big too, but you can't make it go away. So you need to deal with it in the most positive, clear way possible. Yep, agree with you, Whitney. Great idea for a post. Thank you for suggesting it. Tyler, you're welcome. We are moving on. It's about 10 minutes past the hour. Thanks again, everyone, for joining. If you registered, I think everyone here did, you will get the replay link. If you have any questions, any follow-up, you feel free to respond to the replay link. Those emails come directly. No, excuse me. Please catch up with me on LinkedIn. If you respond to the replay link, I think that goes right to my service provider. So if you have any questions, just go ahead and hit me up on the message service on LinkedIn, or shoot me an email, whichever works for you. Thanks again. I welcome you in Job Hunt School as a student or a non-student. And I'm so grateful that you would all give me an hour of your time and be so engaged and participate. So very grateful. Everybody have an awesome weekend.